In this video, we'll talk about how to notate eighth notes, 16th notes, really anything with a shorter duration than a quarter note. And these notes kind of go together because we have to make choices about whether or not they're going to be beamed. Now, I'll show you what I mean. You have seen eighth notes probably in one of two ways. You sometimes see them like this, and you might see some what we call flags, stems with flags like that. Or you could see the same thing with beams. So we'll talk about what's the difference between those two. How do you know when it's appropriate to do a flag or a beam? But first, let's talk about these individually. First of all, when I'm going to just draw a flagged eighth note, it's pretty much the exact same thing as a quarter note. At the beginning, I start with a note head, I add a stem. The difference is I add a flag, just like that. And if I were going to have a higher eighth note, in other words, higher on the staff, so that's all relative. You know, if you're in a bass clef or an alto clef or treble clef, what really matters is whether it's high on the staff or not. Just like with a quarter note, I'm going to go down with the stem and it's going to go on the left side. Remember, stems go up on the right or down on the left. So this has a stem going down, the flag is going to go to that side, just like that. And if you're making any kind of shorter note than that, all you're going to do is add an extra flag. So I'll do another one going up. I'll do it one down on this bottom line this time. I'm not saying a note, by the way, because I don't have a clef, right? So this could be, if I were on the treble clef, this could be E. But if I were on the bass clef, this would be G. All right, so the stem is going to go up this time. And this time I'm going to make it into a 16th note. So I'm going to have two flags. There's 1, 2. Right? I'll do one going the opposite direction. I'll start up higher this time on the top line. Again, I go down with the stem on the left. And I'll make it a 16th note by adding two flags. If I want to make it a 32nd note or a 64th note, you really, hopefully a better handwriting than I do, but you really can just, theoretically, you just keep adding more and more flags. The same thing, by the way, happens for rest. If I were to make an 8th rest, I can have something like that, but a 16th rest, I could just have two of these. Oops. I'll do another one. Here's a 16th rest. All right, so now we get into the beaming. Sometimes when you have a group of 8th notes or 16th notes or 32nd notes, we beam them together. If you have a single note, it's going to have to be flagged. You don't really have a choice. But if we have multiples, we have the possibility of beaming them. And that would look something like this. Now, what if they're 16th notes? Two beams, right? And you can guess 32nd notes, I would have 3 beams, etc., and keep going on. What if I were to have this rhythm? I'll write it up here, and then I'm going to beam it down below. What if I were to have a 16th note, an 8th note, and another 16th note? How would I beam that? I would beam it like this. Can have all of them connected with one beam, and for the 16th note parts, I'm going to do a half beam, like that. Notice it's not connecting, so I can see that this is the 16th note. Let me bring that all the way over. This is an 8th note, and this is another 16th note. So, two questions here. One question that might have come up is, how do we know when we're doing beams if they should go up or down? Well, in this example, actually, let me choose an even easier example. Let's look at this one over here. Both of the notes are low, so it makes sense that both of them, if they were individually flagged, would go up. They should be beamed up also. This one's a little bit more of a gray area because one of them is on the middle line, and if you remember from a previous video, technically the middle line note could go in either direction, but this one's already going up, this one can go in either direction. Why not have them both go up, right? If they were two high notes, you can imagine they would both go down, like this. Let me draw that over here. Here's one with two high notes, and I'll have them both go down on the left and connect them with a beam. Now, here's the trickier one. What if I have a low one and a high one. If I were to individually flag these, this one would go up and this one would go down. Well, out of the two here, this one is further into the extremities. Just think about it logically. The whole point of keeping the stems as close to being inside the staff as possible is that we don't want to run into neighboring staves. We don't want to go all the way down into the next one. So in order to keep this in the staff as much as possible, it would make the most sense to have them both go up. If I had them both go down, this one doesn't have much more to go down before it's already into the next staff. You kind of have to just use your best sense. What if I had 4 notes that I want to beam all together? Well, if the majority of them are lower notes, in this case one of them's in the middle, which would go either way, then I should beam them according to that. So I'll just have all 4 of them go up. Now here's the second question, which I'm going to introduce, but I'm not going to answer in this video. The second question is, how do we know when it's appropriate to beam and when not to beam? Well, we already talked about if you have only one note by itself, you only have one possibility, which is to have the flag. But if you have multiple notes, is it a good idea to beam them or not to beam them? Well, that depends on the time signature. And for that reason, we'll save that for a different video. Go ahead and watch the time signature videos if it's out already, and that'll introduce how the notes fit into those and when you know when it's okay to beam those notes. If you found that video helpful, please click the subscribe button below to find more videos just like it.